So one of the most steadfast threads of the last 10 years of the higher ed summits is the importance of articulation between institutions of higher ed across our whole state. As Judith recognized this morning on the first slide, through the years we have recognized the impact that the career tech schools have, the CDA credential on pathways into higher education, and today we are so very fortunate to that the Ohio Department of Higher Education shares the same passion. So today, please welcome Nikki from ODHE. She's been there 10 years, and she is the Senior Director of Career Technical Transfer Initiatives at the Ohio Articulation and Transfer Network. You need an acronym.
Well, anybody, Josh will hear me on this, anybody that works for any state agency knows that we are deep in our acronyms. So
yes.
Yeah, we have a lot. Thank you. Well, good afternoon. Hope everybody is awake after eating lunch. I know sometimes when I eat, I tend to go into a little bit of a food coma, so I'll try to keep things engaging and entertaining for you all. Thank you for having me come out today. I'm very excited to come and share some of the things that we're doing at the state level to help really with your programs, your students, and then bigger picture, the workforce needs for early childhood education. So I'll start off a little bit by telling you a little bit about what we do in Ohio at the Articulation and Transfer Network and what our purpose is. Most people understand what it means to transfer from one college to another. You take some courses and then maybe you move, or life gets in the way, and then you're going back later and you're going to have to go to a different school. We all can understand what that's like to say, okay, I took English here, and I want to transfer my English to this other school and get credit. That makes sense to all of us. But a really big part of what we do is the articulation piece. So we take a look at the various different types of learning experiences that individuals can have and go, okay, how do we map this to college credit? So we're looking at things that are happening in the high schools, in the career tech programs. We're looking at military experience frequently, just kind of on-the-job training. We're looking at experiences where folks go to our Ohio transfer centers, which are kind of like career centers, but for the adult population. And then we, most recently, a few years ago, started looking at industry-recognized credentials. So that is what I'm here to talk to you about today, is like how these things all come together and translate into opportunities for students and really, pipelines into your programs. So the two main opportunities that I'm going to talk to you a little bit today are, one, are our iTags. And my joke that I always make is, no, an iTag is not the newest Apple product. Because every time I hear iTag, I always think it's an AirTag. I promise you it's not. But really, what iTags take the knowledge, skills, and abilities that someone is able to demonstrate through credential attainment, and then it maps that to college credit. So, in the instance of you all folks, we're looking at the CDA. I'm also going to talk a little bit about C-tags, which Josh talked to you guys about just a little bit before lunch, but we're going to touch on that again. So one thing to keep in mind just about iTags in general is that not all certifications are going to equate to college credit. So if you were to go to our website and take a look at a list of all the different credentials we reviewed as a state, and I think we're, 60 some at this point, it's a great list, but there are some certifications that just don't kind of naturally have a home within degree programs. So we're always looking at the credentials where we can see the overlap and see where it has some applicability to higher ed. CTE in high school, we do the same thing with the C-tags, just taking a look at, okay, those materials that they're covering, the content that they're learning in high school, how does that relate to college credit too? So looking for, these sort of naturally occurring pathways where we can build connections for folks. The policy behind C-tags and I-tags really says that we have a statewide policy that says that public colleges and universities that offer similar courses have to participate. So sometimes I'll hear people say things like, oh, well, this school doesn't want to, give credit, they don't want to do this. If they offer the courses, I'm here to tell you that they should be giving credit to students. And if you ever hear of somebody that maybe started at one of your institutions or in one of your CTE programs and this is not happening, always feel free to reach out to our office and we can help facilitate some conversations and make sure that not just that person in your particular instance is, we want them to have a good time, but we want to fix it and make it better for other folks too. Both of these options, either through high school CTE or folks who have earned the CDA, really what we're talking about are pipelines into an Associate of Applied Science degree in most cases. So we want this all to stack together so that students can take the things that they have already learned and that they've been able to demonstrate that they learn, and for them to receive appropriate credit that is going to meet degree requirements. So everybody, I'm sure, is also familiar with getting, elective credit, which sometimes can be really good for people depending on, their degree requirements. But a lot of times it just kind of falls down to the bottom of a degree audit and isn't really helping anybody get closer to earning their degree. And so we're always looking at the opportunities where students can get course-specific credit and then have really meaningful credit towards their degree. So, how does this help your students and folks that you work with? So the big thing that we are always saying is we want to save students time and money, right? So this is just, an example of, looking at tuition at, one college here in Ohio, just kind of giving you a baseline look at, how much, time and then money this translates to students. Okay, yeah, it looks. So this I wanted to show you, and I know there's a lot going on here, so bear with me. We said we want the credit to stack into meaningful pathways, right? We don't want there to be a loss of credit when somebody, goes, they take their CDA and they go to a community college or whatever their path is. We don't want folks to lose credit. So taking a look at this, you can see where folks either with C tags or I tags can really go into an associate degree. And we're primarily always talking about this pathway right here with the Associate of Applied Science, focusing on birth to age 5, and then preparing individuals to go into the workforce. We know, though, sometimes that there are students that are going to enter these programs that their long-term goal is they maybe want to be, a second grade teacher. They don't necessarily want to do that preschool age. And we know that there is a little bit of a disconnect between, what that looks like in the applied degree versus a student that's taking, an AA or an AS that's really preparing them to transfer on and become a teacher, in a traditional elementary school setting. So it's not a straight line. We know that. I'm not telling anybody anything new in here. We know that there is some content that is in that Associate of Applied Science that just doesn't fit into a typical bachelor's degree for a professional educator's license. So I wanted to talk with you all a little bit today about some of the options that you could maybe, if you're a high school person and you're working with students that are also doing CCP, some things that they could do that would kind of round out their education, and it'll count for an associate's degree, but they would also count for that bachelor's degree. And those of you that have your AAS programs, there are some ways where you could have some specific requirements in there that would give students options. So if they were to change their mind or decide later, they really are interested in going on and doing that they're not going to have to repeat things because they took the wrong general education course. So another thing that we do at the OETN, the Articulation and Transfer Network, is we work to build statewide pathways. So what we try to do through our guaranteed transfer pathways is go, okay, so how does someone do an associate's degree, and then how does that plug into the bachelor's degree? Education is so crazy, folks, that this is the one area where we haven't been able to figure it out. We cannot get educators across the state and programs across the state to agree on what the first 60 hours of that degree program should look like. So I'm sure nobody is like terribly surprised. And we like meetings at the state. We love bringing stakeholders together, and we really have tried. Where we ended up, and this is a for now, not a forever, is we agreed on the first 30 hours. So what that does is students can start anywhere, and they have 30 hours that they can take that will be guaranteed to transfer into any of those bachelor's degree programs. So what I've done is I've taken some things from that first 30 hours, and we've listed them out on here just to give you a better idea of some recommendations of like students that are doing CCP or are taking courses as part of their applied associate's degree program. These are the specific requirements in areas like, so you look at the sort of general education picture around the state, and there are very traditional categories that have to be met. So one of those is math. You know, there's a certain amount of math that a student has to take, and it looks very different depending on what your major is. So these are the ones that faculty have agreed to. You know, if you take these as part of your first 30 hours, these will transfer around. So this is like what I'm gonna call safe general education courses for these students that maybe don't know exactly what their long-term goal is, or they just change their mind. You know, I as someone who used to be an academic advisor, I would talk to students all the time that totally thought that their AAS degree was going to provide, you know, the first 2 years of a four-year bachelor degree, and then they were gonna go teach second grade. So we know that that's not the case, but we always wanna do what we can to try to protect students whenever possible. So, you know, there's, in addition to the math, there is a natural science category. So there's certain amounts of science that have to be taken, I believe 2 for a bachelor's degree, but we know this is one that was approved for that first 30 hours. So, you know, biology course. Within arts and humanities, students have just almost an endless list of things that they can take at most schools that will fulfill an arts and humanities requirement, but U.S. history and introduction to literature are the 2 that faculty felt would be appropriate and that could transfer on safely, and they're part of that first 30 hours. And for social and behavioral science, introduction to psychology. So this is just stuff I would, you know, ask that you keep in mind as you're working with students or working within your programs, so that students, you know, have the best option of not having to repeat anything as they move forward. I wanted to show you this as well, so ITAGs, so folks that have that CDA credential, right? What they can do is they can go to our website. We have something called a credit transfer tool, and they can select various tabs, you know, so if they want to see where their college coursework's going to go, their career technical, military, what have you, they can get an idea of what kind of credit they would be eligible for and where. So this specific example is for the ITAG, for the CDA. You can do the same thing with CTAGs though. You go on here and you select the credential that you're looking for. So we've got the Child Development Associate on here. And you add that to your coursework and find matches. The website also to do this is on there. And then you're going to get something like this. It's going to show a list of all of the different public colleges and universities in the state that have an approved course on file with us. And it will tell you exactly what type of credit this person would get. So if somebody were to go to Columbus State and they had their CDA, they would get credit for the courses that are listed here. That's guaranteed credit. They should not have to do any kind of prior learning, you know, assessment. They are not going to need to go through a process where they're creating a portfolio to be evaluated by faculty. This has been streamlined by the work that we've done at the state level, and we had faculty on board all across the state that agreed to participate in this. So this student should just be able to show up and say, hey, you know, here's, you know, a copy of my CDA, or however they officially, you know, do that. And they should be awarded this credit. So some additional resources that you may want to be aware of, just links that I have on here. I don't know if you shared this out with folks, Judith. Yeah, okay. So this just provides you the link to go to, you know, different spots on our webpage where you can take a look and see what's included on the CDAI tag, right? So you can see, you know, what courses are eligible. Students should be receiving anywhere between 6 and 9 hours, depending on where they go and what courses they offer. And so that breaks down to about 2 to 3 college courses for that CDA. You can also take a look at the Early Childhood Education and Development CTAG. And you can see, you know, if you're teaching in a secondary program, all those great courses that Josh talked to you guys about earlier, it'll show you, you know, exactly which courses equate to what at the college level as well. So, and then that first 30 hours that I keep talking about for an education pathway, I included that on here as well. So these are just some different resources that we have on our website. You are also always welcome to call me or email me anytime you have questions about any of this. And there's my contact information for you. I also brought a new colleague of mine with me today, George, sitting back there in the almost last row.
I got pen all over my hands.
Yeah, George comes to us from Columbus State, and he's a new member to our team. And he's going to be really involved in creating ITAGs and making sure that ITAGs are implemented successfully across the state. So I just wanted to introduce you to him. You can contact him as well. That is what I have for my formal presentation, and I'm happy to take any questions that anyone has or go over anything in more detail.
Before we take questions,
Yeah.
did you say you were going to share something about the military?
No, I just mentioned
the tab.
that it's, yeah, the tab. So like, you can just click on that tab and there's an enormous, when I say enormous, it is a very, very long list of different either military courses or military training experiences, and it will show you how those align to college credit. So that can be useful sometimes. I mean, because sometimes, you know, folks go into the military right after high school before they have any idea what they want to do, and they may be eligible for college credit. So we have, because of the things that we've created in Ohio for articulation and transfer, students have so many opportunities. Everybody knows about College Credit Plus, like everybody knows about that, so I'm not even going to talk about it. But students really can sort of group things together and take things, you know, if they've done an AP course, if they've done CCP, if they did career tech, if they earned a credential, if they were in the military. It's not like you can just use one and then you're done. Like, you can piece these things together and it can really get someone a lot further along in their degree program than they might think. So just being aware that there are all these different opportunities, I think, will help you all just, you know, communicate that better to students. Yeah.
Did you say it's under credential?
The CDA?
Like in that, because I was just looking to see
Yeah.
what ours said to make sure it was up to date on here, but I can't find the CD. Maybe I'm just missing it.
It's listed under, it says Council for Professional Recognition, Child Development Associate.
Okay.
Since they're the ones that issue it, like that
Got it.
name
Okay.
appears first. Yeah. And if you look on there and you're like, oh, this doesn't show anything for us and it should be showing some things for us, talk to me. There's a person at each institution that is responsible for making sure that the school is compliant and that they are fully participating in these initiatives. So in order for a course to get on that list, they do have to submit their course to the state. It's reviewed by a group of faculty members that teach in that content area to determine, does this course meet these statewide learning outcomes that faculty have set and agreed to. So sometimes it's that, you know, your institution hasn't submitted the courses yet and they're just not in compliance. And there are folks that I can talk to, you know, on your behalf at your campus, so you don't have to be the bad guy, and I can say, hey, we really need you to get these courses in. You know, we know that there are students that are trying to access this credit, and it's important that you go through this process and have these courses approved.
So with transferring, and this was great, I was wondering if there's any talk about transfer in the other direction. We have quite a few candidates who started in college to earn their associates in early childhood, weren't able to make it, so they took a step down.
Yeah.
Not to say that that is, you know, no pejorative there, but they took a step down in the CDA, but the colleges, I would say most, many colleges are saying we do not give you that transfer, the alignment to how your coursework actually aligned to the CDA. So even though the council accepts college coursework, they're not able to get that alignment, and so they have to start over unless the course is really, really specific, like child development, that's clear. But the PD specialists will look at college coursework and say, I'm not able to verify that you've taken these classes because the alignment is not here. So that's a gap that we noticed for a while.
I want to make sure I'm understanding what the concern in question is, and I'm not sure that I fully get it. So I hear what you're saying. Somebody maybe starts out, to 4-year university, and then they decide, this is not for me. I'm going to go do this associate's degree. Am I right so far?
Yes.
Okay. So in terms of the way that the coursework would transfer, it would transfer, I would say, the same as anything that is approved under any of our statewide initiatives should be transferring. So if they took, an intro to psych or biology or their math course, all of that stuff still should be transferring because we have set up statewide learning outcomes for all of those courses. And if a course is meeting those learning outcomes at one school and it's meeting the learning outcomes at the other school, they should be getting credit. It doesn't matter if they went to, if they started off at, Kent State and then decided to go to Tri-C.
Yeah, this isn't from institution to institution.
Okay.
This is trying to meet the council's requirement.
Oh, okay.
And that is where they're not getting that credit. They have completed maybe most or all of their CDA coursework because it's embedded into their ECE coursework. But without that alignment, the PD specialists will say, sorry, I need the alignment.
I think she might have something to add to the conversation.
I'm not overstaffed, because this is my thing, but they should be able to make a profile in OCCRRA and upload their education, and OCCRRA divides it up in between. Because you can run a report in OCCRRA that says you have this many hours in each of your 8 sections for your CDA.
Right, but college coursework it's not broken down that way.
Mine is.
Just get the credit hours.
Mine is.
Oh, yes, so if
By
you're,
CDA subject?
Yeah.
Yeah, the eight subject.
OCCRRA does it. You gotta go to a report and it says, it
I've
divides.
not seen that for the coursework, I've only seen that for training.
Yes.
yeah, right,
That's
for
what
training, yeah. So for that, what we did, we just had a meeting with the council in the spring, and because we thought the same thing has happened to us. How do they get credit for that coursework? So what I did was I went into all of our courses, and I broke down how many clock hours fit under each of those. And then they gave us some information about how to do that, so when a student submits that, they get the credit. So we haven't changed our official course outline yet to show that this course meets X number of clock hours, but that's what we have to do. So we just had that meeting in the spring, and she said it was very helpful. I just haven't had time to go in and do the final part, that's what I told you is on my list. But we do need to do that, I think, because sometimes the students are working towards their associate degree, but it's going to take them a while, but they want to get that CDA. So why not take a course that's going to be like a 2-4?
And because it's not required by colleges, that's where it's not happening.
I would
Some
say-
are doing it, some aren't, and so a lot of our candidates are lost in the sauce.
What's that?
So we're from Cleveland, we can talk.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.
What I don't understand, and I presented this in an email to a few people here, is why it's articulated into the higher ed as a ITAG, but why then those courses that my organization takes in as an ITAG, why isn't it articulated back to the CDA Council as credit for those courses being, why do we have to do more work to prove we do 10 hours in this? If we're giving them credit, why is that not being accepted just on face value?
Yes, there's so many more hours, I think, in a college course. Like they need 10 clock
Of
hours,
course.
so there's way more clock hours. So it's just having evidence that they meet that. And I think, like you got me thinking now about how we could do that in a simpler way with OCCRRA, like aligning to the CDA what do you call them?
Subject
Yeah,
areas.
competencies, yeah, how we could do that. But anyway, the council is aware of that, and I encourage you to talk with them too, because they were very helpful. It felt like we were collaborating.
So I don't know if this is helpful for anyone at all, but if you were to go online and look at the official ITAG document, for the CDA, we had faculty that worked on this, and they aligned, I don't know what the correct terminology is, the standards, the areas, whatever, from the CDA to the learning outcomes in the courses. So it does provide like a really good alignment if you're trying to just look at it and get information, but we do not work directly with the council at the state. We do in terms of like, okay, well, what's included in your credential? What are the things that people learn? You know, what does the certification process look like? But not that sort of backwards kind of transfer, so to speak. That isn't something that we do at the state, but we do have the alignment documented between the credential and the college courses.
Just really simply, if you take those courses and the CDA competencies and provide a statement on your college letterhead, remember the PD specialist is the one there reviewing that, and so the simpler you make that for the PD specialist, the easier the whole entire process is for the student. So it's not that it doesn't articulate, it's just that it does, and I agree with Lynette, like it's a little more work on our part, but all you gotta do is take those competencies, look at your courses, outline those hours, put it on letterhead, sign it, and then the student has the verification of that, and the PD specialist is the one that looks at that, and it makes things just so much simpler in the whole process for the student and the PD specialist.
Because the PD specialists they speak, we all speak different languages here, and then they speak a whole different language, and it is all.
I am too.
And the training is zero. The training is not helpful, so it's really not. So it's different for, every PD specialist understands it differently, which is really, really tough.
We do the paper that she just said, that breaks it down. So I did
you have
get
a
the
question?
ITAGs and all that.
Yeah.
You know, when you graduate from my program, you get that ITAG or whatever, but it breaks it down,
Yeah.
what she just said.
I think we have another question.
So my question is going the opposite way.
Yeah.
I'm with a bachelor's degree program, and as we look at PA, as we look at science of reading, as we look at all the other things that we're supposed to be aligned to, the question becomes is as we change courses, and you guys have done work, how do we determine where it is in that to be able to say, but has it met science of reading? But, you know, it's the but, and that, we're really concerned because it is, where's the time the first time, and then the second time, and then the third time? And so our question really has to do with, as we look at redesigning a program to meet the new state standards or, you know, things, how does that have a trickle-down effect with our articulation, with our community college, with, you know, et cetera? So I guess that's part of my concern, is that I've seen it built for years, that kind of stuff, but I also feel so much is being pushed the other direction that is now outside the scope. We're outside of NAYC's time, you know, age range, we're outside. I'm finding that it's becoming cumbersome to try to figure out exactly who am I aligning to and how do I determine that I have the most current document.
I hear what you're saying. I can speak to sort of the learning outcome equivalency. That is the part that we really do in terms of, you know, what should be in a course and is your course meeting those requirements. Now, you know, if we need to include some of those other things into our learning outcomes, that's a possibility. So we review all of this stuff every few years. So as Josh pointed out, we're in standards revision right now for the C tags. So, you know, if our faculty determine like, hey, you know, this really should be addressed in the learning outcomes, we can revise those and update all of the alignments to include that. So it really will just depend on what faculty tell us needs to be in those courses. Same thing with the ITAG. So we have a great faculty lead, not to throw anybody under the bus, Kelly, that, you know, is helping us with some of this work this year. So I think there's opportunity for us to address that and make sure that if appropriate, it is being included.
So how would that look if you update the learning outcomes? How would like a community college or a two-year college
So
find out about that update?
Yeah.
I mean, do they just have to
There's a
stumble upon it, or that would
So
come
it's a
right down
it's a
the
pretty intensive process. So it starts by, you know, we have a lead faculty member that kind of gives us advice on, yeah, I think these might need updated, or no, these are still good. And if we need to make updates, what we do is then we assemble a faculty panel. So we get a handful of folks, usually from community colleges and universities. In this case, it would probably be a group of folks mostly from community colleges. And we get them together to talk and say, okay, does this learning is it still appropriate? You know, does this language need updated? And they talk through it together. And then if it's substantial enough changes, what we do is we send it out for statewide endorsement. So it goes to all of the CAOs and provosts at the colleges and universities, and we ask that they have the appropriate faculty member take a look at it, and they provide comment and feedback. And then once we kind of have everybody on the same page, we send out an announcement that says like, hey, here's the new learning outcomes for this course. You know, please make sure you're updating your courses. If you need to resubmit and get your course approved, again, because of it, we'll include that. Sometimes if it's minor enough, you know, the faculty will say, yeah, we don't really think that they need to resubmit that. Like, we know that people are doing this in that course.
You just added in and.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Nikki, I'll piggyback up. I'm Kelly Hubbard from Cincinnati State, and I'm the faculty panel lead for the CTAG revisions. And we just met this week to kind of kick off the work. And what Josh discussed is kind of one of the overarching things that's happening first on those education outcomes revisions. But connecting with Tricia through the coalition is typically where I'll connect with faculty and recruit faculty from those coalition meetings, and then it'll get kicked back to either Lisa Holstrom or Nikki to actually organize the panel. So if you want like the logistics of how to get engaged, really getting with Tricia and saying, hey, I want to be part of the 2-year coalition, and that's kind of where we recruit from.
Thank you. Yeah.
So Nikki, thank you so much for this. This was wonderful information. I do want to just end by saying when we were planning this session, what I kept hearing from ODHE was that a lot of these policies are made, but they need faculty to inform all of their decisions, just like we just ended with. So Kelly, thanks for that plug for the 2-year coalition. If you want your name to be part of that, see Tricia in the blue shirt here, add your email to the coalition. We meet virtually, but thank you so much, Nikki.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.